Welcome, everybody. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. For anybody who is, first off, welcome. It's so nice to see everybody. This is the first time that we've actually had our entire commission as an entire body, I think, in almost a year. So it's really nice to see everybody. For anybody who may be watching over the internet, I want to make a note that the internet feed and their comments are not monitored. There is no mechanism for input from that feed. If you would like to access our agenda and packet materials, they are available on the town's website. And then just structure for the meeting. Sometimes, I don't think anybody here is new, but just in case. The structure for the hearings will be for each public hearing item, there will be a presentation by staff, followed by questions from the commission to the staff. Then the applicant will be asked to present. Again, there will be questions from the commission. Following both the staff presentation and the applicant presentation and any commission questions, I will open the floor for public comments. And we also will reserve the right to have the applicant come up and offer any rebuttal, and we can ask additional questions at that time, just so everybody knows what to expect. When the public hearing is closed, the commissioners will deliberate and discuss the proposal, and motions can be made for consideration at that time. I'm going to go ahead and ask Jennifer to do a roll call for this evening.
Chairman Glover.
Here.
Commissioner Dick.
Present.
Commissioner Lushnet.
Present.
Commissioner Kimple noted absent. Commissioner Hours.
Here.
Commissioner Straup.
Present.
Commissioner Wilhelmi.
Here.
Commissioner King.
Here.
We do have a quorum. And Madam Chairman, I'd like to introduce to the Commission a new alternate to the Planning Commission who was appointed by the Board of Trustees on July 1st, Mr. Steve King, and he will be sitting tonight in the absence of Mr. Kimple.
Right. Welcome.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
If everybody can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is a review of the minutes. If everyone has had, does anybody have any corrections to the minutes from the last meeting? And I don't either. Having reviewed the minutes, I move that we approve the minutes from the June 12th, 2019 hearing. Do I have a second?
Second?
Do you want to do voice? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. And the motion passes. The minutes for June 12th, 2019 are approved. We'll be moving on to item number 1. And Jennifer, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first public hearing item before you tonight is a final plat. This is filing number 6 in Sanctuary Point. Probably fairly familiar. You've seen 5 of these before. So just as a reminder, this is sort of a simple little site plan to remind you of where we are looking at. So Sanctuary Point is the large area outlined. You can see phase 1, which has already been platted. Filing 4 and 5 have already been platted in phase 2, and we are looking at filing 6 tonight. Shown here, it is on the north side of Sanctuary Rim Drive. So to give you a little aerial perspective, this is the general area. Again, very central to the site, north side of Sanctuary Rim Drive, completely internal to phase 2. So a simple summary, we're looking at almost 28 acres in filing 6. Again, within phase 2 of Sanctuary Point. Phase 2 was approved by the board in 2018, and in case you remember that, there was a condition of approval that limited the number of land use permits related to phase 2 until the connection is completed of Sanctuary Rim Drive to Glen Eagle. That is currently underway, but there's no limitation on the actual number of lots that can be platted, so those are before you tonight, but that condition is still in effect and still being monitored. So the plat includes 59 lots, 4 tracks. The tracks are for various purposes, for trails, buffers, open space, drainage, the usual, and obviously right-of-way. It is in substantial conformance with that approved PD site plan that I mentioned. And just as note, the right-of-way is dedicated to the town and maintained by Triview. And all the code standards are met with this proposal. So I do have the plat available for you to look at. It's split into two sections. So this is the southernmost section of the filing. Sanctuary Rim Drive would be located along the bottom of your screen. And the northern portion, again, it's a little bit hard to see these in this type of setting. But again, very standard residential lots, public right-of-way, and tracks. Here's a little summary chart for you to actually see the numbers and what you're looking at. As I mentioned, the uses for the tracks, standard mailboxes, drainage, your lots and your right-of-way. So reminders of the folks and agencies that this referral was sent to for their review and any comments. Standard list, and there was nothing of significance that hasn't been worked out with any of these agencies. Staff does recommend approval of this final plat as it meets the standards and criteria for approval, and staff can answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Question. Jennifer, just to the north of the lots 40 through 48, is that the community where the average lots were 2.5 acres or more, or are we further south?
We're further south than that. This
Okay.
does not directly border the county properties.
Awesome. Thank you.
So heading back to the people who, the other entities that received the package for comment, did the Lewis Palmer School District receive the package? They weren't on the list. I didn't know if that was just an administrative thing or if they actually received it.
It would have been sent to them.
Okay.
It would be unusual for them to comment on a plat like this because it would typically, those comments would have been handled during the PD site plan.
And then if we can look at, are there any trails or anything like that that are impacted by this plat?
So I guess I'm not sure what you mean by impacted. The tracks that are designated on this plat do accommodate the local trails that were indicated on the approved PD site plan. There are no regional trails in this particular area as it's central to the site. But the trails that were shown again on the approved PD site plan are accommodated through the tracks shown.
I just wanted to make sure that there was no change
No.
to that internal system from the plat. Okay. Sir? No? Do you have any questions for the staff? No? Okay. Then with that, we're ready to hear from the applicant, please.
Okay.
Lauren Moreland with Classic Homes. Be happy to answer any questions you might have. It is about as cut and dry as Jennifer just pointed out, so. Any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Topography. This area typically, there was buttes and big rocks and whatnot. Do you foresee any steep slopes on these existing streets or these planned streets as far as, you know, a grade of 20% or more?
No, it'll all meet the criteria set forth, the development criteria. So those construction drawings or CDs have been submitted to the town of Monument for review.
Okay.
Sometimes those are outsourced, third party, but everything will meet town criteria
Okay.
for
Does-
development. There are steep slopes topography.
Yes.
This entire project, as you move further west, the topography gets steeper, but for this particular area, it kind of lays within a little bit of a valley there that will take some fill, and it's integrating between filings 5 and filing 7 that wrap around it, so everything will tie together, and we've laid all those roads out through those filings, so everything integrates and works from a utility standpoint, a road standpoint, and that all that meets the town criteria on design.
Excellent. That's my only concern, just because of some of the topography
Sure,
over there.
it is steep over there.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? No? How close is the road connection to being completed?
Should be in the next 45 days, is our
Okay.
hope. So it is graded if you've been past there, and
I have not.
curb and gutters installed on the west half of Sanctuary Rim Drive to the west boundary of Sanctuary Point. And so now it's just a matter of, utilities are installed, so paving prep and paving, and so, yeah, hopefully 45 days.
Sir, any questions?
Yeah.
I have one. So a lot of these lots are fairly small. What, if anything, are you planning on doing to save trees, or do you have any intention of saving trees?
Sure, we lay out a grading plan, unfortunately, in this particular phase. A lot of this is graded. We submit a grading plan to go along with this. So if you've been through Sanctuary Point Phase 1 PD site plan, which had 5 filings in it. Obviously, we're clearing all the right-of-ways, we're clearing the front of the lots, and then anywhere where we're having to make the slopes work and kind of connectivity of grade, at that point, we have to grade those out. But obviously, trees are what help with this, the marketability of this project, so we save every one that we possibly can, but unfortunately, we have to remove a fair amount.
Right. All right, thank you.
Does anybody have any further questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna open the floor for public comment at this time. And seeing nobody coming forward, I will go ahead and close the public comment period, and then we can discuss the application. Anything? No? No?
I got nothing other than the road.
Then, with no discussion to be had, does anybody have a motion they'd like to put forward?
Yeah. I motion to approve Sanctuary Point filing number 6, final plat, based on the findings that the proposal complies with all standards and criteria for approval.
Second.
Having a first and a second. Jennifer, if we can do a roll call.
Commissioner Lushnet,
Concur.
Commissioner Wilhelmie,
Yes.
Chairman Glover,
Yes.
Commissioner Dick,
Yes.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Commissioner Hours,
Yes.
Commissioner Straub.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we'd like to go ahead and move on to item number 2 on our agenda. This is the Connexus Business Park filing number 1. And Jennifer, hand it back to you.
Yes, ma'am. The next public hearing item is another final plat for you tonight, Connexus Business Park filing number 1. So this site is located between I-25 and Old Denver Road, directly across from the Wagons West development, which you all saw a while ago, north of Baptist Road, essentially across from where the ice rink is located. Right in there, approximately 23 acres. I should have gone to this slide. It shows it for you a little better. Again, the ice rink, this is the location for the Wagons West development, and then the Wagon Gap Trail, this Trails End neighborhood is right up here. So the project is located between 2 drainage channels or creek beds there on the west side of I-25. You all have seen this project a couple of times as well. You've seen a zoning, a preliminary PD site plan, and then an amendment to the preliminary PD site plan, so you're probably pretty familiar with the area. So again, just a simple summary for you, about 23 acres. That preliminary PD site plan that I mentioned was approved early last year. This particular plat creates 2 lots, 4 tracks and right-of-way, and I will show you that in greater detail here in just a moment. And again, the standards are met for the proposal. So I did a very colorful chart for you here, because I know these are hard to see. So lot 1 and 2 are the red and purple. These would be the developable lots that are proposed at this time. The green would be the public right-of-way. These would be, again, dedicated to the town, and this is actually in the Triview district, so this would be maintained by Triview. And Triview would be the water and wastewater provider as well. Tract A and D are the open space and drainage areas. Those are undevelopable. Tract C would be their detention pond, their drainage area. And then Tract B would be potentially developable in the future. It would come back to be platted into lots in order to be developable. They're calling it a tract right now because they don't know, right, with a configuration that it would best be suited to be configured. And so right now it's just a tract, but it would have to be replatted to be, for tract B to be developable. So that's a summary. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to show it to you in that way so that you can sort of see what you're looking at. Again, there's a lot of the land here that's drainage and open space, but you do have 2 lots being created as a part of this plat. Again, the folks that were sent this project and that provided comments and those types of things, again, this is in the Tri-View District, and they are providing the water and wastewater. And again, it's a simple overview, but for this plat, but staff does recommend approval as it does meet the standards and criteria for approval. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Question on lot 1, is it just for one dwelling or multiple structures?
So I don't have a final PD site plan at this time. This is the lot configuration that the property owners have proposed. So
Because that's a big lot.
it is a very big lot. Yes, it is.
Okay, and then Wagon Bow Way, the new street, the green area,
Mm-hmm.
what is west of there?
It's a continuation of Wagon Bow Way, which goes into the Wagons West development.
Okay,
So that will
to-
be, that aligns and goes across Old Denver Road.
Perfect, awesome.
Yeah, and that lot is very large. A lot of times you'll have large lots in these industrial type developments. So, but you can also have very small, as you see. So it depends on the users that the owner thinks that they will have.
Awesome. With this one road into the lots in this area, what are we proposing or having them do as far as the Santa Fe Trail?
Yeah. So as a part of the preliminary PD site plan, a number of conversations were had with El Paso County Parks Department regarding that crossing, what that will look like, the details of that. Those conversations are all either have already been had or are in the works, right? So that's essentially all been worked out. Because the trail is not actually a part of the plat, is why it's not really sort of shown, because it's right. That's public property versus the private property, so it's not really shown on the plat.
Correct.
But they did look at this, and the requirement for getting that finalized will be with a final PD site plan. But those conversations, the applicants are very well aware of that and are having those conversations with them to be sure that they're ready when they do bring that final PD site plan to you. So yeah, it's been essentially worked out, so to speak, of what that crossing will look like, what type of improvements the county is requiring, and those things.
Thank you.
Mhm.
She asked all my questions.
She asked one of mine too, but I want to follow on a little bit. So going back to a discussion that we had a few months ago,
Okay.
there is, and I don't remember, is it 4 or 6 crossings that are going to be permitted from, to cross over the Santa Fe Trail? Because the same owner owns the property from the southern end all the way up to, I don't know what the street is that I'm, sorry, I'm blank. Up to Second.
From here north is the same owner. There's a different owner for the property to the south. That MOU with the county from years ago grants a maximum of 6 crossings of the trail.
Can you clarify 6 crossings from Second Street to Baptist?
Almost, not quite to Second Street.
Okay.
There's one parcel that's not included in that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them will definitely be located here.
Yes,
Okay. So we have a few more to come.
yes.
When this one had initially come forward, there were some issues with regards to permissible usage as it pertains to this plot of land. Are there targeted, I guess you could say, corporations, individuals coming? Is that why this plat is being brought forward in this particular way?
I would assume so, but the property owner could plat land at any time without a user and without a final PD site plan. They just can't pull a building permit.
Okay.
So, but yes, that is my understanding.
Okay. And then a portion of this land, there is the I-25, the visual layover, which goes back a while. It was incorporated by reference as part of our comprehensive plan. And that will be addressed when they come forward with a final plat.
A final PD site plan.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, a final PD site
Mhm.
plan, okay. Those are my questions.
None from me.
No?
No.
There you go.
They got on? Sir, okay. Then we are ready to hear from the applicant, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mike DeGrant with Shuck Communities. I think Jennifer explained things really well. I can answer any questions you might have.
I have a question.
Okay?
Out of curiosity, 5-acre lot. What are we
So-
potentially looking at? Commercial,
So, let
Target,
me-
restaurant?
Let me
Where
back
we
up a
going?
little bit.
Okay.
Those would not be allowed.
As Jennifer described earlier, you've seen the PD site plan,
Mhm.
and then we came forward with a amendment to that PD site plan about a year ago. And that lays out the uses that we're allowed to put on the property. And the amendment to that PD was for religious institutions. So on that 5-acre piece, there is a church going on that parcel. That's why it's being platted the way it is today. We've got a number of other potential users looking at the rest of it that would be in the Track B area and on Lot 2. But they will all conform to the PD site plan that's been approved. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Questions? Kind of work our way down? I don't have any further, no? Sir? Questions, sir? We're good, thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to open the floor for public comment at this time. And seeing nobody come forward, I will go ahead and close the public comment period. And we can discuss amongst ourselves. Is there any issues anybody wants to bring up? No, we've seen this one before. But you haven't seen this one before. Do you have any questions or anything else?
No, the only question I would have was it's Santa Fe Trail, but.
No.
we already talked about that.
Okay. All right, so being that we're not having a whole lot of discussions, anybody have a motion they would like to bring forward? Oh, come on.
Motion to recommend approval for Nexus Park, Business Parks, filing number 1, final plat, based on the findings that the proposal complies with all standards and criteria for approval.
I second.
Jennifer, if you can do a roll call.
Chairman Glover?
Yes.
Commissioner Dick?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner Hours?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilhelmie?
Yes.
Commissioner Strop?
Yes.
Commissioner Lushnet?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, we're gonna move on to item 3, the final PD site plan for Peak Equipment Solutions. And Jennifer, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So the final public hearing item tonight is a final PD site plan. Not a final plat, because we've already done that.
Sorry.
No, I was saying that, because we'd had final plat, so this
Alright.
one's a final PD site plan. So the area we're talking about is in the Wolf Business Park. It's located north of here on Beacon Light Road on the east side between Beacon Light and I-25. And this particular final PD site plan is for Lot 4, which is highlighted here in yellow, which is essentially sort of at the end there of Wolf Court, adjacent to I-25 and their right-of-way. So summary of this project for you, again, Lot 4, it's a little over 2 acres. And they are proposing a final PD site plan for an equipment rental business. So this would include a building, like an office warehouse building, a fenced storage area, their landscaping, parking, and those types of improvements. This is an allowable use within the Wolf Business Park plan development. And again, the applicable code standards are met. So the office and warehouse building they're proposing is about 6,000 square feet. They do have a screened storage area, storage yard, with a really cool fencing, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second, which we think is going to really add some interest to the site. The applicant has done, at least on their landscape plan here, proposing extensive relocation of the trees. There's actually a lot of trees out there on that site, and so they're proposing to strategically relocate those so that they can save as many of those as possible and utilize them to have quite a bit of landscaping on their site that's natural to the area. And sort of in line with that, with the location of those trees, in addition to their fencing, a lot of their site is actually going to be screened quite well with those items. So I have a few elevations for you here, and I know these are a little bit hard to see. I do have a color one here in a minute. So the applicant has added some color banding to add some interest, windows, and then they have some decorative awnings with some color accents, and then quite a bit of glass along their front elevation. They do have bay doors to access their storage area of their warehouse. Additional, again, bay doors, again, pretty simple industrial building, extending that band along that south elevation. And then I do have a color rendering for you here, again, sort of pretty neutral tones, browns and taupes and things like that, with some yellow accents. So I wanted to highlight the sort of landscape plan and overall site plan for you here. Access to the site, as I mentioned before, is off of Wolf Court, so on the western side of the site. The yellow would be the actual office and warehouse building. And then you can see their fenced storage area in the back. The back would be the eastern side of the site. And then you can identify with all those little green circles, all the trees that are there and that are being relocated and sort of their strategic location. There's extensive landscape area in the front as well. They're using native grasses and things that are there, so it won't be a high water user or anything like that. But I think it will create a pretty attractive entrance to their site. Summary there, and they're actually, I may let the applicant speak a little bit more about it, but they're actually keeping this huge tree in the back of their storage area. They think that's a pretty cool asset to keep, so I think that's interesting. So the fence that they're proposing is not something that we've brought to you before, but we think it's a pretty interesting model. And I do have a sample of it for you, and I'm going to pass this around if that's okay, just so you can get a feel sort of for how it works. And obviously these would be in much larger panels, but this is something that's being used more and more routinely now because it is lower maintenance than like a cedar fence, but provides obviously much better screening than the chain link, right, with the slats or that covering that you can put on them and things like that. So it's somewhat similar to a masonry style fence. It gives that appearance while being quicker to put up, like I said, and very low maintenance, and it lasts a lot longer. It also provides some sound barrier based on the material that it's provided. And so I have a couple sample photos of other places where it's been used. And like I said, we do think it provides a pretty interesting screening wall. Here's another example sort of along a residential neighborhood. It definitely gives that masonry feel at first glance. And so we were excited to work with the applicant to come up with this type of fencing that we think would be really interesting on the site, an improvement from some of the other fencing that we maybe have seen in the past. Again, the folks that have seen this referral, this is actually in the town, so it will be provided water by the town and wastewater by Monument Sanitation. Fire on those folks have reviewed this project. That was a pretty quick overview. We can certainly go over any questions, but staff does recommend approval. In some ways, it's pretty simple. It's a final PD site plan, but it's a single lot, right? The infrastructure and those types of things are already handled. So it's really just the development of that site. And I can answer any questions you might have or go into greater detail about anything.
Question.
Okay.
On the area where they're going to be housing their machinery, I don't see any noted. Is it asphalt? Is it going to be breezeway? What?
It's a recycled asphalt material.
Okay.
They actually provided a lot of detail about the method in which that's put down, and that's actually considered to be one of the best materials for storing the type of equipment they're storing. And the town has utilized something similar in some of our public parking lots.
So their parking lot's asphalt, and then they go into
Yes, but it will
recycled.
be,
Okay.
the only area where that would be used would be fully screened. And we did have some conversations with them, and they provided, like I said, some reference that type of material, it doesn't track out or anything like that. It's actually very, very stable.
Awesome. Thank you.
In your staff report concerning the south elevation, you made the comment that it's a simple side of the building. will be at least partially screened from the adjacent properties. What's that mean?
It means that because of this huge cluster of trees on the south side between the adjacent property to the south and the building, I think all of these trees are going to be a pretty good screening mechanism.
Okay, so that will be screening the whole park? Is that what I'm hearing you say, or
Right, well, just based on sort of the way the plan, right, illustrates that they're going to group this large number of trees in that area. And so I do think that'll provide pretty significant
So the
screening.
trees are the only
Right,
block?
yes.
Is what you're telling me?
Yes, the
There's not
trees.
a wall there, it's the
There's not a
trees,
wall in that
and
location,
so
no.
they'll be able to see
It would be the
through.
trees and the distance in the landscape area, that's
Okay,
right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. I was looking at the maps closely, and on sheet 2 of 8, it says there's a roadway easement that's going through the storage area. What is that?
Can I have just a minute
Sheet-
to bring that
sheet-
up?
Sheet 2 of 8.
Okay. Let's see here. I do have
Unless
the
I
packet.
misread something, it says roadway easement.
Is that the one to the sign?
I don't know, that's what I'm gonna look at.
That's on the next slide.
Let me see here.
You
I'm
can-
having
you can-
trouble seeing it.
You can zoom it up if you want to. Just so you know, back here we have screens with both Jennifer's presentation and with our package here, so that's what we're looking at back here.
So I see a utility and drainage easement.
Okay. and then
I
there's-
will, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but I wanna go ahead and mention it. Directly to the south
Right here.
of this lot, and it's not on this lot, there is an easement that was granted to that existing electronic sign that is not platted. Does that ring a bell at all? So,
remember
The video one?
yes, the one that, yes, that is. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but it's worth mentioning anyway. That whenever Wolf Business Park was platted, we required them to add that easement so that the sign was not landlocked, even though the sign is not properly platted.
So this gives the servicer access
That's correct.
to the sign.
That's
Okay.
correct. But it's actually directly south. It is not on this lot. It's directly south of this lot.
Okay, that's just.
Does that help?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what it meant.
Oh, of course. Great
And,
question.
let's see. The only other question I have talking about is what kind of signage is going to be out there? I didn't see anything that showed signage anywhere.
I think they have some ideas. Signage isn't typically approved as part of a PD site plan, so they will go through the regular sign permit process, and it would have to meet our regular sign standards. I believe, and we can certainly confirm with them, that they're planning to put a wall sign on 2 sides of the building.
Okay.
But it'll meet the same standards that all of our buildings, or all of our signage is required to meet. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. All my questions. Thank you.
So on the plans as submitted, it says opaque chain link fence on them.
Yes, I have talked with them about that.
Okay, thank you.
That is, we will make that change before it is platted.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Before it is recorded.
Okay.
I've said plat way too many times tonight. Before it is recorded, we will have that correction made. What you have seen is what they are proposing. That's what the detail shows, and that's what will
Yeah,
be required.
that's-
Yeah, it's just the wrong wording there, and yes, we noted that as well.
Okay, I just want to make sure the conflict was noted. And then what is the proposed, and I didn't see this there, lighting on the storage area? I guess this may be a question for the applicant. Is it going to be fully lit?
We can certainly ask them to provide greater detail, but the only lighting that they're proposing is lighting on the building itself. There's no like
good.
poles or anything like
Yeah,
that.
that was my
And so it
concern.
is shown, yeah, so the photometric does account for those. So they don't need lots and lot of lighting is my understanding.
All right. That's it for me.
Do you know anything about the fire resistance of the fence?
I do not know anything about that. That is a great question.
I mean, it's right adjacent to the interstate and grass.
I
mean,
don't-
Inasmuch as some of these pictures showed it around residential areas, it must have some fire resistance.
My understanding is it's sort of the latest and greatest in terms of fencing materials. It's sort of that next step from the vinyl, right? The vinyl was sort of a big thing a few years ago. I think it's one step sort of up from that. I know it's, like I said, lower maintenance. I would have to assume better fire protection than like a cedar fence,
Yeah.
but I don't know specifically.
Is it recycled material? Do you know? We can ask the applicant.
They might know more details about it. I was mostly concerned about the height and the aesthetic of it
Sure,
and
sure.
some of the benefits of it, but I don't know that answer.
The black dots, of course, are the pine trees that are going to be moved.
Right.
And they're going to be relocated as shown in the green
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
area. And that's a key feature of the site.
I think so.
screening.
Absolutely.
And it'll be very nice to have that area screened from I-25.
Absolutely. So I think the combination of the fence and the,
But trees that are
Trees.
moved are very susceptible to dying. And of course, the town has an ordinance about maintaining required trees and plants that are shown on the plan.
right. And we also require, right, a financial guarantee for landscaping for a year, right? Everything has to live for a year. Certainly, you're right. That's one of those catch-22s, right? Is sort of saving as many of the trees as you can, and hopefully that they will live. I think there's some real benefit. Our staff was sort of excited to see them keeping a lot of those trees because some of them are significantly larger than what you can go buy, right, to install. So certainly, we're hopeful that as many of them will, live and thrive as possible.
Like all of my things that are guaranteed for a year, they die in 18 months.
That is the, yep. So, but we can certainly, you can certainly ask the applicant about that, but they have indicated that, right, this is their business and their investment, and I know that they want to do what they can to make it, as attractive and things like that as possible.
Yeah, I thought they did a lot of planning on this site. It looks very nice. And the building will sit down lower than that perimeter area.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, the fence material, is that the same as, and I think it's Silver Star, but on 105 heading east, there's Monument Academy on the north side, and then on the opposite side, there seems to be a faux mason wall that runs the length of that residential development. Do you know, is that the same stuff?
I don't know.
I live there, it's not, that's more of a brick, this is more of
Is it?
a composite.
Okay, because that stuff, it's like a beigeish,
Mhm.
it looks horrible now. I mean, it is just,
It
it's
gets
kind of
hit
falling
and it
apart.
breaks.
Yeah, it breaks,
Mhm.
it's susceptible to the wind.
Mhm.
It seems like it's very floppy.
This is more of a composite, that when you're talking about, it's more of a brick,
Okay.
more of a stone
Okay,
material.
okay, thank you. There's an equipment rental sign on one of the,
Mm-hmm.
is that part of the building, is that part of the plan? I just saw this equipment rental.
It's not part of the approval. It's shown sort of for illustrative purposes. Like I said, they will still have to get a sign permit and show the exact dimensions, and those will be checked against the requirements. So,
All right, so no further questions for staff. Would the applicant like to speak, please?
Good evening, I'm Levi Akers with Peak Equipment, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
So I have a couple for you. On the building itself, is the paint going, or is there gonna be like a matte covering? Or will it be a reflective surface, the sides of the building?
From what I've seen in the samples, it's more of a matte finish. It's not a super high gloss
Okay.
finish.
And are you planning to have any lighted signage facing towards I-25 at this time?
Lighted, I'm not sure. Jennifer, can you go to the picture of the west side of the building? Or east side, excuse me. We put that on there, I guess it is lighted on that, where we'll say equipment rental. That was one of the benefits of buying this property,
Mhm.
obviously, is I-25 frontage, and having the building somewhat be seen from I-25, but not glaringly standing out there. I don't think if we go with that signage, the letters themselves won't be lighted, but in the evening it will have overhanging lights over it.
Okay. As you know, one of the unique characteristics and appealing qualities of Monument is our view of the mountains. To consider perhaps a sign that is lit facing north-south so people see as they travel down the freeway, but it isn't viewable as the town looks to the mountains in the evenings. Would be nice to preserve. One of the main characteristics of our town is to go ahead and maintain that clean view of the mountains, which is lovely. I very much appreciate you guys looking to save the trees and coming forward with a wall that is of much higher quality than we've seen in other sites. Appreciate it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And being a resident of El Paso County my whole life, and of Monument since 2001,
Yeah.
I want to keep it that way and do that, so that's why we put a lot of effort into designing that.
That's nice. Questions?
I do. I'm actually really excited about this.
Okay,
So, but
so are we.
just a few questions. Security. You are very exposed to a lot of traffic with I-25 being there. How are you going to secure your equipment? Because you guys, some of those machines are very expensive. So how are you going to secure your lot? What's your plan?
The gates will be alarmed, the building will have motion detected lights, and video cameras that turn on if anyone comes into that lot. I think that style of fencing that we have chosen blocks a lot of that. It's not something that someone can easily come and cut a hole in with bolt cutters and drive a skid steer or wheel something through it. But it will have motion activated cameras and lights around the entire building and facing into the lot.
Awesome, awesome. And then some of these bays, are you going to repair machinery or just your own machinery? Outside machinery or just yours?
No outside machinery, it would just be mine, and it's primarily for storage.
Okay.
There will have to be some repair, unfortunately, that's the
Machines
nature
break?
of the business,
Okay.
occasionally.
Mhm.
But primarily that'll be for the smaller equipment storage.
Okay. And then this is just an idea. Majority of my trade partners have trucks. And I noticed the width of your parking spaces are 9 feet. If you've been to a Costco, they do 9 feet plus like the big paint lines. Just a recommendation. Drives me nuts. I go pick up, and there's all these trucks, and I can't get out. So just something to keep in the back of your head.
Note taken.
And then, what's the other one? Oh, the wind comes from the north, and I think, Jennifer, can you do the trees again? So, see where you have your trees there? Just a heads up, drifting. You're gonna have your main entrance for your area, that's gonna drift pretty good, on the south side of those trees. Or maybe on the north side. Something to consider, just something to plan ahead.
Okay,
Awesome, that's it, thanks Levi.
thank you.
Questions, sir?
I asked all mine earlier, staff.
No, you're all good, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine.
No question.
What kind of equipment do you run?
Small contractor and homeowner equipment, small excavators, skid steers, rototillers, trenchers, ladders, drills, scissor lifts. We won't have anything large in there.
Like any cranes?
No.
No cranes?
No cranes, no large excavators, no large wheel loaders.
So do you think the fence will sufficiently cover, or at least impede the view of the equipment that's sitting there?
Absolutely, especially from the north side, the fence elevation is higher than the lot elevation. I don't know the exact exact number, it's 4 or 5 feet, from the base of the fence at the east side down to the storage lot area. So I wouldn't think that there would be anything that I would have that would be higher than that.
Do you have an existing business of equipment rental?
I did, I do not anymore. I was partners in an equipment rental business in Castle Rock, and I sold my interest in that to pursue this project here in Monument.
Any other questions?
I think we're all good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd like to go ahead and open the floor for public comment at this time. And seeing none, I will go ahead and close the floor for public comment. Do we have any items to discuss with regards to this proposal? Any? No, I think it looks great.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. All right. Do I have a motion?
I move to recommend approval of the Peak Equipment Solutions final PD site plan based on the findings that the proposed development complies with all standards and criteria for approval.
Second?
Jennifer, if you can do a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Commissioner Dick?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Chairman Glover?
Yes.
Commissioner Lushnet?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilhelmie?
Yes.
Commissioner Strop?
Yes.
Commissioner Hours?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
And that is our final application we'll be hearing this evening. I'd like to go ahead and this time open the floor for public comment for items not on the agenda. If anybody would like to say anything, they're welcome to. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, guys. I just wanted to let you guys know,
Don Wilson, he's our mayor.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mayor Wilson, Town of Monument. Madam Chair, Commissioners, it is great to see a full board here tonight. I know you guys have struggled with that, and the Board of Trustees will do our best, along with staff, to help you to continue to have a full board. I think you guys quite often go unappreciated. We do look at what you guys send us with your recommendations, and they are all considered, and we try to move best forward with what you guys do recommend. I think you guys get left out a lot, so I do just want to show my appreciation for having you guys here and your commitment to helping our town. Please, please feel free to email me if you have any ideas. Myself and Madam Chair discussed an idea earlier. Of course, don't email me with anything specific to a project. But again, just thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for coming, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
Would anybody else like to come forward? And seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the floor for public comment. And we'll move on to reports and communications. So I'd like to kick this part off with saying congratulations to Jennifer, who has been named the Town of Monument Employee of the Month. So we appreciate that, yay! And this was directly attributable to her work in securing the grant that will help revamp our zoning code. So for those of you who weren't here last month, yes, great, it was fantastic. There was like a huge cheer at the last meeting. We have the money secured to begin the process of revamping our town zoning code, which has been something we've needed to do for a really long time. So we're very excited about that. And so thank you for all your work with that. The request for proposal is out. When are proposals due back?
July 19th.
And so after that time, staff will select who we're going to be moving forward with as a consultant to aid in that process, and it will begin moving forward. So that is good news. I'm just going to run down the list. Do any of the commissioners have anything to report? No? Yeah? Anything to report? I have nothing else. Oh, just to mention, the one thing that Mayor Wilson mentioned that we had talked about, just so kind of everybody knows it's not a secret. I had asked, I would like to have a way for people to be able to write in and develop a process for that. So if people cannot attend a meeting, they have the opportunity to submit written comments that we can then consider, as we would consider verbal testimony. Right now, there is no mechanism for anything like that, and I would like us to develop one, so we can hear from as many people as possible. But I have nothing else to report. Sir?
Questions for staff. The project that we approved, the rezoning 3rd and Washington, was it?
I was just thinking about that.
77 3rd Street, yes, 3rd and Washington.
Yeah, what are they doing over there? Do you have any idea?
Um,
I mean,
it,
they're bringing in a lot of fill.
so it, oh, would you go ahead?
Go ahead.
Sure.
If you know, let them know.
Yeah, it's proposed to be a medical office building.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be nice.
And the addition to the little chapel,
Mm-hmm.
St. Peter Church,
Yes.
what is that addition to be?
Go ahead on that one. You worked with them on that.
It's a meeting space. They expressed that their existing facility and what they use for that purpose needs to be freed up to increase the use of things like their school and other purposes. And so I've been told that the primary use will be a meeting space.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sir?
I want to follow up with my email that was circulated regarding the calling of a special meeting. I don't know if this is the right time on the agenda to do that.
Yeah, I can go ahead and actually address that.
Okay.
So, and there was a little bit of confusion on that, because we have asked staff to cap our agenda at no more than 3 items per hearing. We know that sometimes we can run a little long. So we want to put a cap on that because we had more applicants come forward. That was the one that would generate the most interest and would need a special space to be heard. So that is why the special meeting's being called. It's to accommodate our administrative restrictions on the agenda and not upon the demand of the developer.
Was there any, I guess, consideration for, before calling a special meeting or even the dates being assigned to, like, for instance, we got an email indicating July 24th or July 25th, which one can you make? There was no advisement regarding what was going to be on the agenda. There was nothing that really indicated more than tell me which ones are available. And then from there, a date was selected, and then the special meeting, I guess, is now scheduled and calendared. So I mean, while I understand the 3-item limit, you know, it's not even 7:30 yet, and obviously we move through. It really depends.
It really does.
I don't know if that. Well, would there be consideration for changing the way a special meeting is noticed?
How so?
In that, here's what we would like to discuss on this special meeting. Here's potentially more than 2 dates for this special meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why we have to have it so quickly. That's something that I was shocked about, was why does that particular project, that particular item need to be addressed so quickly when, you know, things get delayed. I get it, and I understand that this thing had been delayed, but again, we're barely an hour here. And, you know, this idea that I would have loved to have had more notice on what was going to be tasked to be decided
Mm-hmm.
for this special meeting, and I would have loved to have had more than just 2 dates to potentially consider.
Okay.
So, I don't know if anyone has any comments. I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna be here.
Okay.
And, you know, I wanna participate,
Right.
including special meetings.
Right.
And including a special meeting on a project that seems to have a lot of attention and importance, so. So for instance, is there any way to, on the initial email regarding the special meeting, to say this is what we will be looking at the special meeting?
So,
And if not, why not?
with regards to noting a specific application, my concern would be that we don't want the decision based upon the application itself, because we want to be equal in our treatment regardless of whomever is coming forward. So that would be my concern with mentioning necessarily the why. I mean, I think administratively, if we simply said we have more applications than we can support within the current restrictions that we've set, which is this 3-item cap. And keep in mind, we're moving at world record pace for us tonight. Normally, we plod along normally.
I know last meeting was a long one. I remember that.
So I think, and anybody can chime in here, but I don't think we should be mentioning the name of a particular applicant for concern that we must treat everybody objectively regardless of who it is.
And how about more
And
than
then-
2 dates being circulated for the special meeting?
So I'm actually gonna punt that portion back to staff. I think with the nature of a special meeting, we are restricted to the midpoint between 2 other meetings, otherwise it simply doesn't make sense to go like back to back. And then then we are also constrained by staff availability and applicant availability within that in-between period.
And the
Are
room
there
itself.
constraints? And the room itself, okay, well, so I didn't even think about the room.
You're right, and the public notice itself, right, making sure that we have adequate number of days, and then, you know, which Board of Trustees meeting that falls to. So it's one of those things, there's actually multiple pieces to that puzzle. I will certainly assure the commission that special meetings are rare. We don't try to do that to you very often. The reality is summertime gets very, very busy, right? We had, 3 consecutive months, I believe, in the winter, right, where we didn't have a meeting. So, you know, it's unfortunate that it works out that way. That's sort of the cyclical nature of, you know, development in this business. So I would just assure the commission you won't see that often. But it did seem appropriate in this particular circumstance.
And who decides the urgency of the matter?
So, according to the bylaws, I am the person who technically calls the meetings. The urgency in determining if we have exceeded the restriction that we have put on staff for 3 items per hearing, that's gonna come from staff. So when they say, look, we got more people ready to go, then we have slots available.
So, like, for instance, how did this item on special meeting get priority over the 3 items that I assume are on our August agenda, or conceivably our September agenda?
So gets priority over the August agenda. We have not set firmly the August agenda. We are anticipating having a full August agenda.
Oh.
But the idea being that this one item and hearing other items with it, I think would put a huge burden on us. I mean, we would have to be prepared for a very long haul.
So it wouldn't even fit into a 3-item agenda?
In my opinion, no.
Staff has the same opinion, right? We've had similar projects in the past that were of that sort of scale and nature, and it, in our opinion, seems to work better. I guess better is relative, right? To have it on its own agenda. That was staff's goal, is to have it on its own agenda so that the planning commission didn't feel rushed, right? So that however many people from the public want to come and speak have that opportunity, and quite frankly, so we're not here at midnight.
Are we delaying anyone because of this 3-item rule? I mean, are we pushing out things that would be otherwise ready?
Very rarely. Again, these things sort of come in waves. And to be very honest with you, things, a lot of times we don't know until the day of if it's going to be ready, right? The nature of these projects is that they're very, very fluid, and things may be moving very quickly, and all of a sudden, right, you know, with one phone call or one email, there's something new that's come up and it's halted. And so it's very hard to predict schedules. And so when we do have something of this magnitude, and I'm not trying to overplay it, that it's large in nature, like physically large, right? I'm not saying it's horrible or fantastic, either one. It's just big in the scope of it. We like to be sure that everyone has the time, like I said, to discuss those things. We've gotten, you know, the feedback from this group in the past that sometimes you all feel rushed on a project if there's a lot of information to consider. on this type of project where the only thing that is currently approved is a sketch plan, there is a lot to consider. And so, like I said, the idea was that it would be best for all parties for it to be on its own agenda. The way to assure that is to schedule a special meeting. The month timing worked out to do that. It doesn't always work to do that. It did work out sort of this time to do that, where it could still go to, you know, the other, the August board meeting. So it did not have to be done that way, but it was our understanding from the town manager and things like that, that due to outside circumstances, if there was something that we could do to help move it along, that we should probably try to do that.
This project's been on our hands for a year,
I believe it came in 2017,
so it's.
maybe 2018.
We've been working out some input from other parties and trying to get that fleshed out. And it just sort of came to a head just after the this meeting, being able to schedule for this meeting and maybe bump something else, I don't know. But again, the main thing is what we see is the magnitude of information you're going to get both from us as well as
The public.
We always have considered and thought that this should go to its own meeting. It just didn't fall at a time where we could get it cleanly onto a regular scheduled agenda.
Again,
I guess a
it'll be
quick-
rare.
Just a minor, we're not currently telling somebody you have to wait till October because we're backed up until then. We're not, that's what I was saying, is we're not stacked up right now that we're pushing people months out.
Most likely, no.
Okay.
But I mean, again, if we had known a week earlier, you know, could we have put it on this agenda? I don't know. We probably would have wanted to wait.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
So.
convey that I'd be willing to work longer
Mhm.
to make sure people are heard in a timely fashion versus a 3-limit item that's gonna push things further out, which
But the
might-
queue is not full at the moment, if that's what you're asking. But again, that sort of comes and goes almost daily. That changes. How many things are ready, or we think they're going to be ready, or, oh, they're not even close all of a sudden. So it does change regularly.
So if I can ask just kind of like for folks' general opinion, would you prefer to avoid special meetings? Or are we as a group okay with it if circumstances warrant?
We
Okay.
had one special meeting and I'm fine.
And I only know of one other that we had, and it was specifically to discuss the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, so.
But I've never heard, so I don't even know how long I've been on the board at this point.
The reality is we have enough alternates as well.
To fund it, yeah.
Yeah.
You're okay with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think given the nature of the project, it should be on its own agenda.
I agree.
And whether that's a special meeting or a regular meeting.
Yeah.
And it's been dragging on for long enough to where any opportunity to expedite it probably makes sense. Will we have the packet just 7 days in advance for the next meeting?
Wish I could promise you sooner than that, but that's, I think, only a week from tonight. So
Yes.
I hope you have it a week in advance. I don't know that I could get it to you much earlier than that. We
Got
can
it.
certainly
Okay.
try.
All right.
But these things, right, they come really fast. So we will try to get it to you as soon as possible.
Great.
Just one other question, is there any way to participate remotely?
That is a question for staff. I don't know the answer.
Not that I'm aware of.
I believe we have a full commission that night. Is that correct?
Except for Mr. Mahoney?
Yeah, except for that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I could participate
So.
without being here.
Well, if we have a full commission with people present, certainly not, in my opinion. And secondly, there's an opportunity for somebody to suggest that you are not clearly hearing all of the evidence.
If you weren't here.
Right.
Okay, I didn't know
So.
if we had a video.
You can
like
watch.
that.
You could certainly watch, but you wouldn't be able to vote. Yeah. But you could certainly watch the hearing and, you know, be able to sort of know what's going on or something like that. But, yeah.
Process for us to be able to get
process for the public to be able, we don't have any mechanism within our current structure, within our bylaws
So we
or our
don't have
code.
anything yet. We're
We don't
working
have
on it.
anything yet.
Working on
That's,
it.
I was talking
Okay.
with Mayor Wilson about that, something that would be good for us to have.
Okay, that's,
Do you have any notes you'd like to make?
Well, obviously it's nice to know you. Although I'm new to this planning commission, I'm not new to planning commissions. I've sat on one for 8.5 years. Just as a general note, I know this is a process and everything else, but one of the things that I talked to Jennifer about when I came here is I really didn't understand why this rental facility would even need to go through this process. It would seem that, you know, you have a piece of land that's zoned, you go pull a building permit and meet the criteria, and that would certainly free up time if that's something that regularly goes on, and especially, you know, with something like that, this is one building on a lot. So, that's just a note that I just bring up for some point down in the future.
Okay. Go ahead.
I am talking about the 25th meeting.
Okay,
I imagine this room's gonna be rather full.
I don't know.
It's gonna
Could be.
full. Will there be somebody or staff or someone that will be able to talk about the traffic study, some of the details on what all's impacted on that traffic study, what all's been considered when it was done? So
The applicant will have their traffic engineer present.
very good. And then details related to the Higbee Road and El Paso County not wanting any extension out to Higbee Road. Will somebody be able to talk to us about what that's all about?
We will let you know what El Paso County has let us know, absolutely.
Okay, because those are two things I think that are gonna be significant that we need to understand, the folks out there are gonna need to understand, so that we can do the right thing
Sure.
for the applicant. That's all I got.
So obviously, we have not seen that packet yet, but just a
Right.
general question, is there anybody from any outside organizations that would need to be invited to attend that meeting to make sure that we can hear and get information from anybody that you feel might be important from other parts? Because you said this has been negotiation with other parties for a very long time. Perhaps having some of those parties present, if we give them enough
yeah,
notice.
we'll try
I
to-
don't know who they would be excited seeing anything.
We'll try to think through that and be sure that all the appropriate folks are present,
Cool, thank you.
definitely.
In this one, I'm guessing the package that you're gonna send us is gonna be a little bit more substantial. I mean, history, we're not gonna have the history if this has been discussed in this forum
Right.
unless it's provided, or do we have to go digging online? I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of, if you're setting the stage for an engagement that's larger, more robust, the background information, so it'll prevent on-the-spot questions and discovery. Should we expect a substantial package, more history, do we need it? I don't know.
We will try to include everything that we think might be relevant. Obviously, like I said, it hasn't been written yet, so we still have the time to do that. There hasn't been a whole lot done. Like I said, really, the magnitude is the size of the project. A little bit less history, but we'll definitely try to include that so that, and I know the applicant will talk quite a bit about that as well. They obviously know the history as well, but we'll try to be sure and include, you're right, a lot of these are probably oversimplified, some of these packet materials, but we just try to, not send you 12 and 15 pages of stuff if it's not necessary. But we can try to be sure that all of the relevant details and maybe even extra details are included in there, just to be sure that you have all the information you need. But certainly as you're reading the packet, if there's other information you feel like you need, give us a call or send me an email, and we can definitely try to provide that. If there's something that
Yeah,
you
it's
need,
just usually
we
there's
can
stuff that
provide it.
we find out in the discussion, like, man, we'd love to know that. Or when we say a comment in here, this is a relatively young commission.
Mm-hmm.
We say, oh, that was discussed a year ago. Well,
Right.
That means nothing.
Right.
I mean, to me.
Sure.
So, or 2 years ago, especially.
You're right, and we
You
do
guys
say
have
that a
all the
lot.
background, yeah.
But that'll be less the case in this particular scenario.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Just a question on the Jackson Creek Parkway south of Higbee, the expansion or
The widening.
the widening?
Mm-hmm.
What seems to be the stall? Is it? what's
Oh, I
going
don't
on
know. Do
there?
you know that?
It's moving along.
It's been sitting there, Larry.
Try-
It's not,
Tribu's handling that, right?
Right.
yeah.
Tribu's doing those improvements.
We have good weather.
Pardon me?
Snow is coming. We have good weather now. Come on.
They expect to start very soon and finish by the end of the year. And of course, paving is not really available necessarily after Thanksgiving and sometimes in November, so they have to anticipate that. So I think curb and gutter obviously be the first thing you'll see. Then you'll see some asphalt widening going in. There'll be some medians as well. So last time I asked, and I ask often, pretty soon you should see some work going on out there. You see those piles out there now. Those were unfortunately put there for a purpose that is not gonna be functional. They expected to use those for road base, and that's material is just, that's ground asphalt from when they were repairing the roads in the rest of the area, and it's not acceptable for road base, so, that was just a move that they made because it would have saved them paying to have it all hauled off. Now it won't save them that amount of money.
Very much. Thank you.
I believe that one of the Tri-View board members presented at the last board meeting, and I believe he said that they were aiming for November completion. That's what he reported to the board.
Okay.
How are we doing on Kentucky Fried Chicken?
We have no update on that.
The fry is not on.
The most anticipated restaurant in town. I know.
There's no oil in the bucket.
No update.
All right. Do you guys have anything for us?
I don't believe so.
I have no announcements, so I'm gonna go, are we ready to adjourn?
I think we are.
All right, meeting is adjourned.
I called 7:45.
Good job.
Checking my-
But this is too much of an
Oh. You know, I check in with them about every 3 or 4 months, and they're always.
You know this.